Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Friday night that we do come to you live once again from the streets of Kampala to bring you once again the latest from the world of sport and more that there is to come. Anyways, like the norm oftentimes is, apologies on that. But yeah, like the norm always is, our focus will be on the weekend preview that will be coming away, but predominantly tonight we'll be focusing on that game between Arsenal and Fulham, and of course get to talk about other things. We did speak about the game between Man United and Liverpool. We'll sort of shed more light on that. Today morning we talked about the Derby de Clasica. We talked about Chelsea, Manchester City, and more other games, including mentioned here and there for Arsenal. So I think it would serve our interests if we do revisit some of those conversations that we did have in a way, not in the detailed manner that they were, but there's some significant updates that should be coming your way in as far as Arsenal are concerned, in as far as their injury list goes on. Mikel Arteta has given an update on that, so I think it would suffice if we sort of divulge into what the implications of that are in tonight's broadcast. So yeah, then okay, yes, sorry about that. I'm experiencing a bit of a glitch that I need to overcome. It's just not happening. It's just not happening. Anyways, like I said, it's match day 8 of the Premier League, and it will kick off on Saturday, of course. Chelsea in the early kickoff against Nottingham Forest. So be sure to catch that game at 2:30 p.m. East African time. But then also, it will climax on Saturday with that game between Fulham and Arsenal, which is essentially a London derby in itself. So that's why it is very, very important that we look at that London derby. So anyways, without wasting any further ado, like I said, briefly, we spoke about this game in the morning. So we're going to be revisiting some of those conversations. It's a game that comes a little too early for Fulham in regards to their ever-growing injury list. We'll look at the probable lineups and what we should expect. The game comes in the immediate aftermath of the international break. We will look at what the implications could be. Will we expect some players to be rested, particularly for the side of Arsenal? There's a bit of context in the sense that they have a game midweek against Atletico Madrid in the UEFA Champions League. Again, we echoed about this very, very important game that they would want to win. But if they are going to win that, then what does that mean in terms of how they rotate or go about their squad? I think it will be very, very, very interesting to see. And nonetheless, like I said, coming into today's fixture, we know that Sasa Lukic, Samuel Chukwueze, Ante Robinson, Rodrigo Muniz, Raul Jimenez, and Kenny Tete are some of those injured players on the side of Fulham that are bound to miss this particular fixture. While on the side of Arsenal, the likes of Martin Odegaard, Piero Hincap, who has returned to training, Mikel Arteta did say that they were going to have a training session with him today and will assess him prior to tomorrow and see whether he can make it to the matchday squad. Anoni Madueke, he spoke about him as well, saying that soon rather than later, he will be stepping out on the grass to start doing some running. Kai Havertz, his return should be around the corner. And the question is, are they going to return before the November international break? Because, like I said, Arsenal do have some games to play, about 7 games before the next international break, and that's going to be in a period of about 22 days or thereabout. So it's very, very significant on how they manage their squad load. Victor Gyökeres is one of those players that has sort of been tossed into the deep end ever since joining Arsenal. Because as soon as he joined the club, then Kai Havertz got injured after match day 1 against Man United. Of course, all in their absence of Gabriel Jesus. So that meant that their rotations around the forward line are going to always be very, very limited, and it's not been any different. It's not been any different from that. So he's one of those players that you think ideally Mikel Arteta would have loved to rotate. Ideally, he would have wanted to give a rest to sort of ease the pressure that does bear lay on his shoulders in as far as being the target man in terms of getting Arsenal those goals. And he was speaking about that particularly. There's a quote I found interesting where he does allude to the fact that in their first meeting with Victor Gyökeres, he told him he needs a striker who will be okay mentally, I think, or psychologically, going 6-9 games without scoring, and has the mental fortitude to try and hold foot with that, to stay in the right mindset, even when he has not scored in that number of games, because he knows it can quickly run dry on you in terms of chances or goal scoring opportunities or goals not coming your way that could, in a sense, affect your confidence and how you go about the overall game. So he did provide us some, injury updates in today's pre-match press conference. And while speaking about Martin Odegaard, particularly, he said it will be weeks. No definite date for his return, but he's evolving well. Very unlucky what's happening with him and his injuries this season. But yeah, I think he will be back in a few weeks. It could be after the international break, but we will have to see how he progresses, how his knee is healing, how he manages after the next steps in his rehab. So too early to give an answer. That was him speaking about his captain, Martin Odegaard. We know that he suffered that knee injury, injuring his medial ligament when he clashed with Somerville in their 2-0 victory against West Ham. Then he spoke about Martin Zubimendi, who was not part of training on Thursday. I think he was somewhere standing with Andre Bata watching on. But in a clip that was released by Arsenal, you could see him do some gym work. Whether that was for Friday or Thursday, that I cannot, sort of say with absolute certainty. But he did say it was only precaution, not in the sense of injury, but they just wanted him to have an extra day of recovery because he played 2 whole games for Spain during the course of the international break. So we're speaking about Martin Zubimendi sitting out Thursday's training, said, yeah, all players come from different countries at different amounts of games and minutes are played, and we believe that it was the right thing to do. He played 2 games again. His load has been really high recently, and he needed an extra day. He will be available. Now, for those of you that care to remember, I think you remember in that game against West Ham United, Martin Zubimendi had been rested, and while it had not been my anticipation that he would be rested, I think it had been a smart move for Mikel Arteta to say, we'll give you a rest for this one, because he's literally featured in every Arsenal game so far this season, in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So he had put him to rest, and he had started with Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, and Ebeleche Eze in that midfield trio. And we had hoped to see the best out of that midfield trio. But then, unfortunately, after 25 minutes or so, Martin Odegaard gets injured and he's withdrawn, and then they bring in Martin Zubimendi, who ended up being involved in the 2 goals that Arsenal scored. So this one is about managing his load, because again, like I said, the next 22 days, or at least the next space of 3 weeks, in which they're going to be playing as many as 7 games, is going to be very crucial. Literally, they have a game to play every 3 to 4 days. So managing the players' load is going to be very, very critical in how they go about, their squad, bearing in mind the kinds of injuries that they already have in some positions that sort of limit what they can do or what swaps they can do. We know that Christian Nogard is just returning for injury and things like that. So that was the update on Martin Zubimendi. Then he goes on to speak about, of course, Ben White and Pierre Hincap, who are also being closely monitored, with Hincap having returned to training. While Ben White wasn't part of Thursday's training, he said, yeah, he will be training today. Speaking of Pierre Hincap, he will be training today again with us, and if everything is right, he will be available as well. Arteta confirmed. We really want that. He is that player that is going to help us a lot. So that was him speaking about Pierre Hincap. He's going to bring something different to the team. We need to get him going to get to the speed that is necessary to compete at this level and gradually get him to where we want. Now, again, he's one of those players that has been unfortunate with injuries. That as soon as he walked in, he got injured. And you remember he only featured for Arsenal in a couple of minutes in their 2-0 victory against Athletic Bilbao in the UEFA Champions League. So ever since then, he's not played a single minute for the Arsenal. So they want to get him in. Then also for Ben White, again, they want to get him back because getting him to full fitness will be very, very critical or integral or crucial to what they can do in that right back position. Excuse me, because they need to manage minutes as well. They need to give Yohan Timber sometimes a rest because he plays lots of minutes. Then also he did mention about Noni Madueke, and he said he's getting closer. Getting closer as well. Arteta said he's going to start very soon to do some running and stuff, and then again, let's see how that reacts. So, like I've told you, Arsenal have literally a whole list of injuries that they need to concern, that they've had to concern themselves with. But so far, there is a positiveness, or there's something to look at and think to yourself, yeah, things will get better very, very soon. And Noni Madueke was one of those. When he talks about him, running on the pitch again, I think that's very, very positive. I mean, when did he, in the game against Manchester City, that's when he got injured. So it's been what, coming on to 4 weeks, if not already. I think, could we see him before the international break, the November international break? I think that would be very, very exciting for Arsenal again. Then he also spoke about Kai Havertz, because he also remained sidelined following that minor knee surgery that he had to undergo. So he's been out of since the opening match against Manchester United. But Arteta praised sort of his mentality in regards to his desire to get back as soon as possible out and playing. He said, again, very difficult. There is still a lot to do in his rehab. That was Mikel Arteta speaking about Kai Havertz. The reason as to why I want to bring you this context is so that you understand, one, how long perhaps these Arsenal players will be absent or not in action, but also who is getting closer to returning, who has returned, and things like that. So he said he's really pushing it. We know Kai, and that's why we love him so much. But we have to wait and see. I think we are doing really good work with him. Again, he wants to break every timeline, I'm sure. But that's why we have to protect him and make sure that when he comes back, he comes back for a long time. For a long time. And that's what he had to say. So that's what he had to say about Kai Havertz. Again, one of those players that has been injured for the last 2 months. We know he had to undergo minor surgery. It's like I keep saying, it's just unfortunate. Sometimes when it comes to injuries, there's no easy way about it or way around it. At the end of the day, you can only deal the hand you've been dealt. So in that sort of sense, And particularly for me, for Kai Havertz, I think Arsenal really miss him because there are games you watch and things have not fallen in place for Victor Gyökeres, and you couldn't help but think that maybe it would have been time to bring on Kai Havertz. Then, if he had been fully fit, I wouldn't be surprised if he was starting some of these games. And then Victor Gyökeres be brought off the bench, ease him in. We know he had not had preseason, so he's had to, push himself really hard to get to full fitness. And then the goals have not come easily. He's so far scored 3, a brace against Leeds United and another against Nottingham Forest. But it's not been that easy. So it means he's not scored in 5 of the 7 games they played in. So, and yet Gabriel Jesus, who would have helped sort of relieve that kind of pressure or that kind of responsibility, is been out injured and he's not expected to be back this year. The earliest they expected him is at least in 2026. Like I kept saying during the course of the summer, had it not been for that anterior cruciate ligament injury, Arsenal's plan was always to sell Gabriel Jesus. The same way they ended up funneling out, what's his name? Alexander Zinchenko out on loan to Nottingham Forest. So those were some of the comments for Mikel Arteta. Like I said, now in terms of the probable lineups, here is what to expect. Arsenal, let's start with Fulham. Bernard Leno in goal, Issa Diop, then Joachim Anderson, for those of you that do remember for him during his days at Crystal Palace. Calvin Bassey, Timothy Castagna, so usually Marco Silva wants to play with the back 3, and then sort of a 3-4-2-1 kind of system, similar to what Ruben Amorim deploys, similar to what Oliver Glasner deploys. So Timothy Castagna, Tom Kiani, then Sander Badge, and Ryan Sessegnon, and then ahead of them is Joshua King, Alex Iwobi, and Harry Wilson. Now, again, this is because their team is laden with so many injuries, including their 2 strikers in Raul Jimenez and Rodrigo Muniz, who are all out injured. On the side of Arsenal, I'm anticipating some players may not start. The good thing for Arsenal is that the likes of Ricardo Carafiori return without scratch. But yeah, expect David Ryan goal, Gabriel Magalhaes alongside William Saliba, Julian Timber, and Ricardo Carafiori in the back 4. Declan Rice alongside Martin Zubimendi with Ebeleche is ahead of them. Bukayo maybe Leandro Trossard starts ahead of Gabriel Martinelli because of what? Jet lag. That, it's a bit of a long trip going to South America, to Brazil, and Victor Gyökeres to lead the lines. And particularly, I want to mention this is, one, like I said, Arsenal going to play this game with that Champions League game in mind. So I wouldn't be surprised if he made, let's say, he decided to rest Gabriel Magalhaes and start with Christian Mosquera alongside William Saliba, or if he decided to pull Ricardo Carafiori into that centre-back role and then play Miles Lewis Kelly at left-back. None of that would surprise me. However, for Pierre Hincap, unless otherwise, I do not see him starting this game, even if he makes it to full fitness and he makes it to the match squad, because you didn't want to toss him into the deep end with Craven Cottage. Not that Fulham are the biggest of teams, but it's a London derby nonetheless. We know that for a fact that Arsenal have not won at Craven Cottage in the last 2 league outings, one being the 1-1 draw, and that was last season, and then last season, but one being a 2-1 loss to the Gunners. So you have to go back to the 2022-2023 campaign to find that Arsenal victory, which was by 3-0 at Craven Cottage. So with that in mind, I do not think he will be quick to throw in some of his players into the deep end, players like Pierre Hincap, who are yet to gel with that team, given that they've been absent through injury. The other player is Christian Nogard. Ideally, under ideal circumstances, coming from the international break, you'd think that Christian Nogard would be at least one of those players that gets to start. either in Martin Zubimendi's role or Declan Rice's role, whichever way, to sort of give the other minutes sort of a bit of more rest, but also bearing in mind what's to come in midweek, that they will need all their energy against Atletico de Madrid. So that's there to be digested. Then also, again, my expectation is that Arsenal will go to Fulham and dominate play. Fulham have a couple of former Arsenal players who know the Gunners a little too well. Bernard Leno, I was there when Mikalajita was walking in. Alexander Iwobi, former Arsenal player, left during, I think, 2018, around that period, and joined Everton before leaving to join Fulham. You do have Emil Smith Rowe, another former Arsenal player, in that cohort. So whether they get to start, that remains to be seen. But at least you can bet your hands that two of them will start, and that's Bernard Leno and Alexander Iwobi. Again, if I'm Fulham, I just need to play with a bit of a middle block, low block kind of thing. Try to be defensively solid. Look to catch Arsenal on the counter attack, because the expectation is going to be simple, that Arsenal will dominate play. They'll have majority of the ball, and yeah, let them have it, but make sure they do not do much harm or damage while at it with it. Nonetheless, so the midfield battle, I do expect Arsenal to win it. If Martin Zubimendi and Declan Rice are starting with Eberechi is ahead of them, they should be dominating it. Also, I want to expect more from Eberechi Eze. Reason being, he's yet to spark. He's yet to spark. We are yet to see the sort of silky and sublime Eberechi Eze that we saw at Crystal Palace. And yes, there are reasons for that. Of course, he himself needs to find chemistry within this team. He needs to gel within this team. He needs to find the perfect partnerships that aid him be the best version of himself. A couple of times I've watched him and I thought he's playing with a bit of caution. He's not sure whether he should be the ability is of Crystal Palace, who carries the ball, dribbles past players, and makes things happen, or he needs to keep passing the ball, as is the nature of play with Arsenal and things like that. So, but we'll wait and see. I gave you my prediction in the morning. I do not think it's going to change. It is a 3-0 victory for Arsenal. That's what I'm going for. But nonetheless, Arsenal will have to be wary of Brian Sessegnon. I will have to be wary of Alex Iwobi and Harry Wilson. Very, very capable of hitting. Of hitting the target if given the opportunity. So I think Marco Silva was speaking about Arsenal's injury situation, and he said he was saying that in the absence of Kai Havertz, they have Victor Gyökeres, who cost 75 million. 75 million. Then you look at Martin Odegaard. Then they have Eberechi Eze, and it's, in other words, he's looking at the plethora of talent that is at Mikel Arteta's disposal in a season where everybody, literally, not everyone will wish for him to win it, but at least there's a sense that everyone almost expects him to win the Premier League title for the Arsenal, who have not won it in the last 22 years. The last time they won it was back in 2004. So in the last 21 years, coming on to 22 years, if you do consider 2026, which gets underway in a couple of months, 2 months and a half, and things like that. So really, really, interesting bit. But I think technically, Arsenal may be the better side. But just because they are the better side does not guarantee that they will win. We've seen it one too many times where the better side does not get to win the game. Yeah, in that sort of sense. But if Marco Silva, I think I would rather start with Emil Smith Rowe ahead of Joshua King if he's fully fit to start against his former bosses. So yeah, apologies. I am yawning a lot. I don't want to say I do not know why that's the case, but it's due to a bit of fatigue and tiredness, really. Then okay. Apologies. So in the other fixtures, like I said, we discussed the game between Chelsea and Nottingham Forest. In case you want a full preview for it, please go under the live section and look for our Friday morning broadcast. It has a headline of weekend preview, Derby Classica, and things like that. That's where you will find our full preview for that Chelsea game. Same applies for the Man City game versus Everton. We talked about Bournemouth and Crystal Palace, teams that we do expect could cancel each other out. All defensively solid. Bournemouth not too conservative in a sense. They don't play in that much a conservative manner, apart from Crystal Palace. If they know they're not going to have a lot of time on the ball, they just let you have it. And then they play with that bit of middle block where once they steal the ball, then they go quickly to the other end. And I think we saw that. We've seen that a couple of times. Then on the side of Bournemouth, they have Agri, the best player of the season so far in Antoine Semenyo, who scored 6 goals and provided 3 assists. Almost a tally of goal involvement that Erling Haaland has, who himself individually has already scored 9 goals in as far as this season is concerned. But the reason as to why I would choose Antoine Semenyo is during the course of the summer, he had been subject to lots of speculation linking him with a potential move out of Bournemouth. Rumor had it that Bournemouth were bound to demand a fee in the excess of 70 to 75 million pounds for his signature for anybody that wanted to sign him. Nonetheless, all that put to the side, he ended up staying, signed a new long-term contract, and he is happy with Bournemouth. So Crystal Palace, he's one of those players that they will really need to sort of look at with more than one eye, because he is capable of making things happen. Evad Nilsson in as the striker, of course, that is to be expected, but Marcus Tavernier and Dave Brooks, all the others to keep your eyes up on. But if Bournemouth had to do anything successful on the day, I'm sure a part of it, if not most of it, will have something to do with Antoine Semenyo. So he's one of those players that you look at and he makes things happen. But also, I always have reservations sometimes about players that are hacking it, who are coming from certain levels and below, because being good in a Crystal Palace side or a Bournemouth side is a bit of a different ask than being good or just as good in a Manchester United shirt or in an Arsenal jersey, in a Chelsea jersey, in a Liverpool jersey, and subsequently perhaps Manchester City. So it takes a bit of what do I call it? A bit of fortitude for you to be able to grind it out. So Crystal Palace is one other game to watch. But anyways, like I've told you, it's match day 8. Those are some of the fixtures. Anyway, just a recap of the fixtures. Nottingham Forest entertain Chelsea at 2:30 p.m. in the early kickoff, but at 5 p.m. there will be 5 games to be played, including Manchester City up against Everton. Sunderland will be against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Burnley will be at home against Leeds. Crystal Palace welcome Bournemouth. Wolverhampton and Hove Albion will welcome Newcastle. So those are some of the things. Those are the fixtures that will be coming your way. Arsenal's game comes at 7:30 p.m. And then on Super Sunday, Tottenham versus Aston Villa at 4 p.m. and then later on at 6:30 p.m. Liverpool being up against Man United, another big game that you shouldn't be missing out, as well as the Derby Classica that will be played on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. East African time. That's between Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. So yeah. Hi LFC, how are you? You say I'm back. Why so early? PSG getting beat. Oh, I wasn't keeping tabs on that game, but I do know for a fact that PSG are in action tonight. Why so early? I mean, I've told you guys before, and I'll repeat this again. On Fridays, we'll be coming early because there's another engagement. By the way, Strasbourg is one of the teams that beat up against PSG last season. For those of you that can't remember, I think the one that came by 2-1 towards the tail end of the season. But yeah, I can see Bradley Bacola squad for PSG, but PSG, excuse me, but Strasbourg had other ideas through uh, Panchel, Pancheli, and Moreira. Um, perhaps I should look for that game and I see if I can have a glimpse on it in the coming as we do this podcast. As we do this broadcast, you never know. You never know. But yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting things. If PSG are busy getting beat, then who are you not to get beat at some point? Oh, oh really? Ah, yes. I'm trying to find a feed for this game, and as I speak, I do not know, but the scoreline says Strasbourg um, PSG. Okay. Anyways, yeah, the game is ongoing because PSG usually in France, in Germany, and sometimes, particularly those ones, they get to play their fixtures early, especially when they have a date in the UEFA Champions League. I mean, they want their teams to be well or more rested. But in the Premier League, even if you applied for that, you may not get that. Some, I mean, you're having crucial games in the UEFA Champions League. Why not play on Friday night? Why not play at 3 on Saturday if you're playing on Wednesday? I understand it's difficult. I understand their permutations or why that is not the case. Perhaps maybe fan involvement because when they know that majority of their fans are working class, so they have to go to work and then return from work before signing up for anything. So that's it. Anyways, that's it. Guys, I'm a bit tired, but allow me to wrap this one here. It's been what 32 minutes of doing this. So thank you so much, LFC, for being part of tonight's podcast. Thank you, everyone that has managed to chip in. Oh, what a beautiful call. Looking at their kits, it looks like one of those Chelsea kits when they were still wearing Samsung, when Samsung were still their shirt sponsor. Is this going to be ruled out as offside, even if it's both from opponents? Anyways. Oh, sublime finish. So PSG are 3-1 behind against Strasbourg. Guys, allow me to wrap it here and wish you a blessed night. Let's do this tomorrow morning. I think around 10, 11, that's when we should be coming on to get things done, to go over some of those games, including that gargantuan game between Liverpool and Manchester United. We'll be looking at what Ruben Amorim had to say in today's presser and things like that. So, but for now, allow me to wish you a blessed night and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye for now. Stay blessed.